For 3 days, it just stood there. At the edge of the woods, beyond the frozen fence line, a massive bear watched the house in silence. It didn't growl. It didn't move. It didn't leave. The townspeople whispered, warned the owner to stay inside, even called animal control. But the bear didn't threaten anyone. It simply stared, eyes locked on the back porch, day and night, like it was waiting for something. Or someone. Inside the house, 10-year-old Lily pressed her face to the window, convinced the bear wasn't dangerous at all. That it was sad. What no one knew was that months ago, a man had vanished into the woods behind that home, a man who had once saved a starving cub, and disappeared without a trace. Now the bear was back. But it didn't come for revenge. It came for goodbye. The house at the edge of Crest Pine Valley had always been quiet. It sat surrounded by forest, backed by snow-dusted pines and heavy silence, just the way Tom Ellery had liked it. He was a man who craved stillness, a retired park ranger, a widower, a recluse who raised his granddaughter Lily after tragedy reshaped both their lives. But the stillness broke the day the bear appeared. It started innocently enough. One cold morning in late winter, Lily, age 10, looked up from her cereal and froze. "Grandpa, there's something outside." Tom, sipping coffee, turned toward the frost-covered window. There, at the tree line beyond the backyard fence, stood a massive brown bear, still watching, unmoving. Its fur was thick with snow, its dark eyes locked on the house. It didn't growl. It didn't pace. It didn't leave. It just watched. Tom narrowed his eyes. He knew bears, had tracked, rescued, even fought them during his years as a ranger. But something about this one was off. No aggression. No fear. No sign it was seeking food. It looked familiar. He rose, slowly, not wanting to spook it. For 3 full days, the bear stood at the forest's edge. Sometimes it sat. Sometimes it paced in small circles. But it never crossed the fence. Never approached the house. Only watched. Neighbors began calling in sightings. "That bear's been staring at that place all week. Isn't that where the ranger lives? Someone needs to shoot it before it gets inside." Tom ignored the calls. But he couldn't ignore the ache in his chest every time he saw the bear's face. Because deep in its eyes, beneath the hunger, beneath the cold, he saw something that didn't belong in a wild animal. He saw recognition. On the morning of the 4th day, the bear was gone. Lily noticed first. She rushed to the window like it had become a ritual, her breath fogging the glass. "He's not there," she whispered. "Grandpa, he left." But Tom didn't look relieved. He looked troubled. That evening, after dinner, Lily asked what she'd been holding back since the first sighting. "Why didn't you tell me you knew that bear?" Tom's spoon paused mid-air. "What makes you think I know it?" Lily shrugged. "Because you looked at it like it knew you back." Tom didn't answer. He stood up, walked to the fireplace, and opened the old metal box that hadn't been touched in years. From it, he pulled out a photograph. Faded. Torn at the edges. It showed a younger Tom in uniform, and behind him, a bear cub. Tom sat down slowly. His name was Boone, he said. He shouldn't have survived. But he did. Lily's eyes widened. Tom told her the story. Years ago, he'd found a cub caught in an illegal trap during a blizzard, starving, bleeding, nearly frozen to death. Its mother was nowhere to be found. Tom, recently widowed and still raw with grief, did something no ranger should do. He brought it home. He raised the cub through the winter, bottle-fed it, nursed it, and watched it grow. It was smart, gentle, curious. And when spring came, he returned it to the wild, heartbroken but knowing it was right. Boone disappeared into the trees. "I never saw him again," Tom said. "Until now." Lily was silent. "Why'd he come back?" Tom stared into the fire. "I don't know, but animals don't forget what saves them." That night, as snow began to fall again, something stirred in the woods. Scout, their old retriever, barked once, a low, uncertain woof. Tom grabbed his flashlight and stepped onto the back porch. Footprints. Large ones. Fresh. They didn't stop at the tree line. They led straight up to the porch. But the bear was nowhere in sight. Instead, left in the center of the steps, was a frozen rabbit, freshly killed, carefully placed. A gift. Tom stared down at the rabbit on the porch, heart pounding. It was cleanly killed. No blood. No torn limbs. Just laid there carefully, as though placed with purpose. "He brought us food," Lily said from behind him, her voice barely above a whisper. Tom didn't answer. He bent down, ran his gloved hand over the snow around the rabbit, studying the large paw prints. They came from the woods, but they didn't go back. They circled the house. The bear had walked around them all night. Watching. Waiting. Tom picked up the rabbit carefully and placed it on the edge of the yard, where the bear had once stood. Then he whispered toward the woods, "Thank you." That night, Tom barely slept. His memories kept flashing back to Boone, the cub who once slept curled at the foot of his bed, who had let a child pet its snout through the bars of the back porch, who once whimpered when Tom left for patrol. He had let that bear go, and now it was back, and it remembered everything. 2 days later, Boone returned again, but something was different. This time, Tom saw blood on his fur. Lily gasped. "Is he hurt?" But Tom looked closer through the binoculars. The bear wasn't limping. It wasn't in pain. "That's not his blood," he said. "He's been in a fight." The bear lay at the tree line, panting. It didn't move when Tom came closer. It didn't growl. It just watched him, blinking slowly, as if trying to say something without words. Then it stood up and began walking into the woods. After a few steps, it looked back. Waiting. "He wants me to follow him," Tom whispered. He didn't hesitate. Tom walked for nearly 2 hours behind the bear, deeper than he'd gone in years. Through valleys of untouched snow, across frozen creeks, over fallen branches. Then the bear stopped. In a small clearing, under a collapsed cedar tree, lay something that made Tom fall to his knees. A man. Dead for days. Half buried by snow and leaves. It was Henry Larson, a trapper from a neighboring town who had been reported missing a week earlier. The man who had once been fined for setting illegal bear traps. The blood on Boone wasn't from a fight. It was from pulling the man out of the cold. Trying to help. Trying to tell someone. Tom felt the air leave his lungs. The bear hadn't come for food. Or shelter. It had come because it trusted him, and it needed him to see the truth. Tom called the sheriff the moment he returned. Within hours, a search party confirmed what he already knew. Henry Larson, the missing trapper, was dead. Hypothermia. Likely unconscious for days before he passed. But it wasn't the body that made the news. It was the man who found it. "A bear led me there," Tom told the stunned sheriff. "It tried to help." The story leaked fast. Local news picked it up. Then national. Retired ranger claims bear showed him body of missing trapper. Guardian grizzly or dangerous stalker. The headlines weren't kind. By the end of the week, wildlife authorities arrived with tranquilizer rifles and steel cages. "It's a wild animal," one agent said flatly. "It's circling a family home. That's a threat, not a friend." Tom stood firm. That bear is no threat. He saved a man once. He's trying to save something again. But they didn't listen. They gave him one day. Then they would come. That night, snow fell heavier than it had all winter. Tom couldn't sleep. He sat on the porch, wrapped in a coat, holding an old photo, Boone as a cub, leaning against his boots, licking his hand. The kind of moment you don't think matters, until 20 years later, when a bear returns with something to say. Then, as if summoned by memory, Boone appeared. Weaker now. Slower. A limp in his back leg. His fur dusted with snow, eyes rimmed with something that almost looked like sadness. He walked up to the porch, not stopping at the fence. He came closer than ever before. Tom didn't move. He didn't need to. Boone sat down. Head lowered. Chest heaving. Then, he nudged something forward with his nose. Tom looked down. It was a small carved wooden tag, strung with a cracked leather cord. One Tom hadn't seen in 25 years. The tag from Boone's collar, the one Tom had carved himself when the cub first stayed with him that winter long ago. "You kept it," Tom whispered. His voice broke. "You remembered." The bear lifted its head. And for the first time in Tom's life, he saw a tear fall from an animal's eye. Boone didn't move after offering the carved tag. He just sat beside the porch as snow fell quietly around them. His breath was heavy, labored. His fur trembled with exhaustion. And yet he had come, not for food, not for shelter, but for a memory, for a person. For Tom. The man who once saved him. Tom sat beside the bear on the frozen planks. Scout whimpered from inside, but didn't bark. Lily watched from the window, her face pale, her hand pressed to the glass. Tom reached out, slowly, and rested his hand gently on Boone's massive shoulder. "You're not here to scare anyone, are you?" he whispered. "You just didn't want to be alone." And in that moment, everything made sense. The days of watching the house. The circling the porch. The gifts, the rabbit, the collar, the protection of the dead trapper. Boone had returned to the only place that ever felt like home. Not to hurt anyone, but to say goodbye. When Tom awoke on the porch the next morning, Boone was still beside him. Still. Silent. Gone. Snow had dusted over his fur like a blanket. Tom's hand rested on his back. And in his other hand, he still clutched the wooden tag. He didn't cry right away. But when Lily came out, saw the stillness and whispered, "He waited for you." That's when the tears came. Tom didn't hide the truth. He told the press, the authorities, the world. He wasn't stalking us. He was remembering us. He was grieving. Bears don't just remember fear. Sometimes, they remember love. His story aired nationwide. And for the first time in years, the world didn't label a bear as dangerous, but as loyal. The wildlife authorities stood down. The villagers stopped locking their doors at the sound of rustling leaves. Children drew pictures of Boone in school, not as a monster, but as a gentle giant with a broken heart. That spring, on the edge of the property where Boone once watched in silence, the town erected a simple stone statue. It showed a massive bear seated beside a man on a porch. Their shoulders touching. Eyes locked. The base read, "He came to remember." And we finally learned to listen. They feared the bear for what he could do. They judged him for what he was. But Boone came not to hurt, but to remind us of the kindness he once knew. In the end, what he wanted wasn't revenge. It was farewell. And in that silence between species, a bond buried for decades was honored one last time. Because sometimes, the wildest hearts are the ones that remember us the most.